And what always bothered me was when I walked into a gymnasium, it was always a gymnasium. It was a sporting arena. It wasn't an educational place. There was never anything educational hanging on the walls. There was never any reason to think that anything educationally was going on, including PE. And PE was just apparently doesn't have anything to showcase, has no data that you get that goes with it. And when I was looking in the folders of my own children as they went through school, there was never anything recorded in physical education from what they had done that year. So there might be the fitness tests, which are kind of an odd thing. They're pretty old fashioned. We're still recording how many pull-ups, how many push-ups you can do when there's no risk factor for weak arms for any major or minor disease. We don't know if you're type A or type B when stress underlies all disease. We're not using any kind of technology to do a cardio test other than a stopwatch. And so this whole thing, when I began to get involved with this, the first thing I did was change what I was doing cardio testing. It seemed to me that I should know what their heart rates were before, during, and after. Still today, there's no documentation of any cardio test where we're recording the pre-exercise heart rate, the heart rate during, there should be some warm-up, the heart rate during the test, and the recovery heart rate. That's essential, that's basic. And this is the year 2022. The printouts that you see behind Arnie Duncan, who is the Secretary of Education on this slide, with Rick Schubach from Grundy Center. He and I were P for Life coordinators for the site of Grundy Center. And Bob Knight is to the left, who now is a PhD and a teacher, a professor at Connecticut. We had a scholars program where we brought in 7 kids each year for 7 years, and they got a master's while they taught in this phenomenal program in Grundy Center, Iowa, where my family and I lived for 38 years. But the printouts behind Rick are printouts from a heart rate sensor. We recorded these, we blew them up, and put them on the wall of the gym so that when people would come in to watch a basketball game, they would look up there and they would see all these printouts and they would find themselves. We did the day in the life of, and we had parents wearing these, and we put different parents up on the wall. And what was interesting is that they would come around after the game, whether it was, a 7th grade basketball game or a 6th grade volleyball game, they would go up and look and try to find their printout. And so the visual evidence is missing from what we do in physical education. Arnie Duncan, Secretary of Education for President Obama, came to visit one program in the United States. It was our program in Grundy Center, Iowa. And look at the technology that's around him. Rick is using a portable mic that has a system that lets him boom his voice with hardly a whisper. He's got the technology. Handhelds are everywhere. And that's just a portion of what was going on. What bothered me was that there was no movement in the profession. What does an excellent cardio test printout look like? Nobody knows. What is a printout of a test that includes the pre-exercise heart rate, the heart rate during the test, and the recovery heart rate? That data is essential, and it's not being challenged or even changed. I was disappointed to hear that many of the universities that I've worked with still to this day are using the old-fashioned test, the 20-meter run, and we don't know the heart rates before, during, or after, and we're telling kids to go to the max. So here's this 4th grade kid, 6th grade kid, 10th grader, and they're supposed to assume that they're going the max, and then when they stop, that they were at the max. There's no feedback, no heart rate. And then they're going to repeat this in the spring and go to the same max, or it would be an invalid test. And of course, it's ludicrous. The whole thing is ludicrous. So they're stopping when they want to. A lot of times they're friends and decide, well, let's just stop. But the pacer test is a great test. It's done indoors. You start, everybody knows what it looks like. It's a 20-meter run. It's been going on for 50 years. But the pacing keeps going. There's a beeping. And the kids can drop out whenever they want. And the laps are recorded. A partner is recording laps. No one is recording heart rate. So when you get done in 2022, this is what you have. The fall test, this kid went 49 laps, 320 seconds. He's at level 6. In the spring test, he went 59 laps, 377 seconds, and he's at level 7. What was his pre-exercise heart rate? What was his heart rate during the test? When he stopped, did he stop at the same heart rate intensity in the fall as he did in the spring? Well, we don't know. And I'm just fascinated that universities are still teaching our majors or exercise science people that when you go out and you're doing these tests in the schools, or even for athletes, you're never going to use any technology. Why is that? I mean, 40 years ago, they said, well, it's too expensive. Well, a college education is $100,000. A heart rate sensor is $100. And now that they can be worn on the arm like I have here, and they're simple to use, that even kindergartners can use it, and they're less than $100. It's just outrageous. So I wrote this all up, and you can read these slides when you go to our website. But the evolution of heart rate technology in sport, has created a revolution for measurement and evaluation. So as a pioneer of using heart rate sensors, I was fascinated to now see where it's come. I think Heart Zones Incorporated has added so many measurements and feasibility, and I think cost as well, and they don't break. So in addition to the evolution of heart rate technology and measuring heart rate, now you can measure distance at the same time. So this is a whole new thing for us. This means that if a student athlete was recording 50% of his activity time in the moderate to vigorous zone today, we also have recorded steps. So now we can reflect day-to-day changes, not only in heart rate and intensity, which is really important, and which I thought was everything, but if you add distance, which is in steps, that means that if a student's heart rate was 175 and he went 30 minutes in that zone, and then and he went 3,000 steps, I'm just giving an example, and then the next week he was doing 170 beats again for 30 minutes, but he went 1,500 steps, then what does that mean? Well, it could mean high heat, anxiety, wind, uphill, downhill terrain, dehydration, insufficient nutrition, insufficient sleep, overtraining, whatever it would be. We now have a reference. We have documentation day after day after day. And because our records each day go home to the parents, they're going to get their beep on their phone and be able to see the printout themselves every day. So we have parents keeping track of this. We have ourselves keeping track of this. And we should have student records at the end of 12 years. So I believe now that the submaximal cardio test for the 20-meter run is the way to go. It's crazy to ask kids to go as hard as they can. We have no documentation. They're fourth graders, they're fifth graders. We don't know what their medical records are. We don't know if they're going. If a maximal test means that, what if it was really high? What if they had problems? What about the obese kids? What about the kids that we have no reference of other heart rate printouts to look at or documentation? We have nothing. So I think we should do a submax test. All we're asking for is to look at the pre-test, which should be submax, and the post-test. And if they change the number of laps in that time frame to more, then we'll know with the same heart rate each test, we'll know that they've improved. And that's all we're looking for. There's no reason to take an unfit kid, a kid who's obese, anyone, and tell them to go as hard as they can. Also, it's incredibly uncomfortable for them, and that may turn them off to exercise forever. So we need an awakening that there's another way to do this. But we need to use heart rate, and we need to use these sensors for recording it. So we introduced this in Grundy Center 2 years ago. We had the kids, fourth graders. We had the big board displaying all the heart rates, which is incredible, which you'll see in a second. And that means that the teacher can simply look up on the wall and see if the intensities of kids at all times. And we can check if they're above the zone, in the zone, or below the zone. And we have that as blue, yellow, and red. And each box is a kid's number. And we're going to show you this in a second. The submaximal test means you're going to keep going until you go to 190 to 200. And you can stop anytime between 190 and 200, or if you miss the line twice. Then you walk a lap, and you go and have a drink of water. Then you record the results with you. Your partner tells the instructor what the number of laps were. And then you go lay down for a full recovery. So we're getting permission now. But what is stopping our profession from operating this simple technology? There is no change in how we've been doing the cardio test, the pacer test, or the 20-meter run for 50 years. I don't understand that. So as a pioneer, the effort grade makes up 50% of most grading protocols. Again, we don't have any documentation of what that means. So if you're really asked to show a parent, well, 50% of the time they were where they were supposed to be in the class, therefore they got an A for effort. Well, now we have the cardio printouts that show that indeed, if they're in their zone, and their zone can be between 130 and 170, and they're going to know what they're doing, and there's no reason to stop. Every day, they're going to get the printout themselves, and they can show it to their parents. Their parents can get it as well. And then we have records, absolute longitudinal records now of every time a kid has worn a heart rate sensor, including athletics and including weightlifting. It's a phenomenal thing. So here's how it goes. I pioneered it in 1980. I was the first person to use a heart rate. And I'm going to show you at the end of this, me downloading in 1987. It's the only video of anyone downloading a heart rate monitor at that time in 1987. And it took 4 minutes to download one file. And I had 550 kids each day. As a physical education major, all I had to buy was a whistle. And then they said, well, you're successful if you just get the kids moving. Well, that's not true. For $25,000, a school can purchase inflatable equipment. They've done this in Utah. Classroom teachers bring their students to the gym. They watch them run around all this exercise area, which is full of fun things. And they go back to class. That's what they want us to do, is just keep them moving. Well, a classroom teacher can do that. Inflatable equipment can do that. And you never have to hire a physical education teacher again. Nobody has any data. This culture has changed. Obesity, drug use, asthma, high temperatures and activity, video games, COVID are some of the reasons why we have to know what we're doing when we're having kids exercise in our classes. We're the professionals. We've had the training. We've had exercise phys, Kinese 1, Kinese 2, exercise physiology, physiological anatomy. We just don't apply it. What's our technology? Has anything changed in how we deliver it? No. And I don't think guessing is assessing. Measurement and evaluation. Our profession needs an awakening. Show me your data. So today, on the left, these students and teacher have no idea what anyone's heart rates are. Same protocol for 50 years for the 20-meter run. On the right, you see the big board up in the screen here, up on the wall. It's being shot up on the wall through a projection system. For $250, you can buy a projector, and it goes from an iPad right on up to there, or a computer. Now you see the kids looking at their own square. If this was their square, or if this was their square, they're going to see these colors changing. When they were laying down, everybody should have been blue. As they start to go into this lapse, they're going to go into yellow, and then they're going to go into red. And we've got that set for 190 to 200, and they can stop at any time at that point. So the teachers on the right and students are not guessing. They're using real-time heart rates projected throughout the test. So when you get done, the current information, like I showed you before, was 49 laps, level 6. Spring test was 59 laps for this kid, level 7. That's it. That's the data we have. This was a 4th grade boy in 2022. No heart rate information. What could you have? Well, you can record both steps and heart rate. What should a printout of a cardio test include? Pre-exercise heart rate, recovery heart rate. What exactly heart rate throughout the test? What exactly does a heart rate printout look like of a kid in excellent cardio fitness? I have never found anyone who's ever seen the printout of the pacer test or the 20-meter run who's ever said, I've seen the printout of what a kid should look like. We don't even know what it should look like. I ask people, what do you think it would look like? First of all, you're not having them lay down. It's not a part of the test. You're not having them do warm-up. When they do the test, you don't know what their heart rate is. And then when they recover, what does that look like? What does it look like? And so what you're going to see, we tested 140 4th graders in Grundy Center, Iowa. They're not in very good shape. But there was one kid who was in great shape, and we were so lucky to find that kid, just phenomenal. And he is a tremendous athlete to this day. What exactly does it look like to do what does the printout look like? So here you have the fall test. Once again, we have laps, level 6. We still have that. We're always going to have somebody counting. We're going to stay with the laps. But we're not going to let them go to the max. They're going to stop at 190 to 200. And they're going to stop again in the spring. So we'll have equal things to check. Spring test, this kid did improve. But what does the printout look like? So here you see this kid. He's laying down. We've got the pre-exercise heart rate. Lowest heart rate he got was 65. Warm-ups got him kept in the blue. This kid is in pretty good shape, really. And then His test started, he went on up, and they struggled with trying to stay up there. But this kid did a pretty good job. When they hit the red, which is 190, they can quit. Then they walk a lap, and they go over, and they lay down, and we get to see what the recovery is. So his highest heart rate was 188. That was his peak. His lowest was 165. And we also have recorded steps, which is going to be interesting in the future. What about the spring test? Did he improve? Well, he did improve 59 laps. He went over 49. He went 10 laps further. What does that look like? Well, this is the kid that was in such great shape. Low heart rate here, warm-ups. Now the warm-ups don't even get him very far in the blue. And then he took it and he went just like perfect. He's also has done the test now before, so he knows what we're looking for. And he stopped again. His highest heart rate was 194. And then he walked a lap and went and laid down. And so we have the max, we have the minimum, we have the number of steps, and we still have laps. This is Smart Heart's workout summary. This is Heart Zones, which has now changed everything. And if anyone can leave this webinar and say, well, I'm just going to keep on doing it the old way, I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's so perfect to do. It's so simple to do. And I'm going to show you a video of the kids actually doing it. I have video of these kids doing it, which you're going to see. There's 5 videos. But it's phenomenal to be able to say, I never knew what it would look like if a pacer test was done correctly. I'll bet you $100 nobody has ever thought about it. Wonder what it would look like, a heart rate printout. And most people don't include a warm-up, which they should. And nobody has them laying down because you're not recording it anyway. How could you record it? And then did you record the recovery heart rate? So I think this is a big deal. So the pre-exercise heart rate, the heart rate during the submaximal cardio test, the recovery heart rate, as well as steps. This is what I'm talking about. This is powerful. These printouts will go electronically into their folders. The parents will get a beep today. They'll get a beep every day. They'll look on their phone and they'll go to their phone and they're going to see that they have a printout that looks like this, that comes right to their phone. I don't know if you can see that. So as a parent, I get that printout, whether my kid was using heart rate technology, like Heart Zones, lifting weights this morning, I'll get a beep and I'll be able to see what the kid did. Or if he was in the summer, I'll get a printout from every day he has physical education to see what was going on. I'll also kind of give me some information and some contact with the school, some technology contact. They get this and they're going to start asking questions about what does this mean? They'll ask the kid the questions. They're going to want to wear a heart rate sensor themselves, which is what we ended up having happen in Grundy Center. Everybody wanted to come in. They wanted to wear them. We wore them for the day in the life of a career. We had 500 careers that we posted up on the wall. It was contagious, and that's what we want. We want a family, everybody getting involved with it and exercising appropriately. Nobody has to go one at the top of the aerobic zone. I made a mistake when I taught. I was an athlete. I thought people should run hard as they could, so they should go up to the 170, 180 for a middle school kid. If I were teaching now and that kid was comfortable at 125 or 130, he's in his zone. He's benefiting his heart. His cardio system is benefiting. I'd let that kid do that because maybe then that kid will exercise his whole life. Maybe he was so discouraged by the athletes lapping him and doing all these things and didn't even like athletics. But maybe he wants to bike. Maybe he wants to do things outdoors. Maybe he wants to hike. But maybe he learned that, I got to get my heart rate up to 130, 135, and it doesn't feel too bad. I can talk while I'm doing that. I would do it differently. Here's Rick Schubach, and the darling kid on the right side is my grandson, who is in the video and is in this whole thing. How do you evaluate intensity? Well, the kids have permission. They get to go faster or slower based upon their heart rate. It's up to them. We'll also be able to look at this. When all kids are laying there, you're giving them instruction, as you'll see Rick Schubach doing. They're all laying down. It's really important to see if a kid, can they get low? How low can they get? If you have a kid laying down there for 5 minutes and you're giving instructions for your lesson or for this test, and they're in the yellow, or maybe even some kids are laying there in the red, that's not good. So if you see this, every day we should see if kids can relax. It may be just that they're hyped up, but that's a problem too. It may be that they're have a cold or some kind of an illness coming on. It could be COVID. We really have to keep aware of kids now, and especially with anxieties. So many kids have anxiety. So here you see Rick, which is so cool. I took these pictures. So he's looking up at the big board up here and watching these kids. And we were both fascinated to see what we thought this kid might be doing, but what he actually was. So some kids we guessed were in the red, some kids we were guessing, and guessing is not assessing. So when it gets done, most people only have the laps, like I've said before. But what could it be? You know, every kid should have this printout. And I just don't know how you could just not think that was incredible. If I had a 21-year-old graduating from college right now in physical education or exercise science, and they weren't coming out trained in this, all these printouts that you could have for weightlifting, for anaerobic conditioning, aerobic conditioning, testing, all kinds of sports. Even as a coach, I put heart monitor on a Michigan State football coach, and his heart rate was way high. You can do a lot of things with this in the day in the life of careers. So basic information for every cardio test: pre-exercise heart rate during the test, and the recovery heart rate. We should know this. It's 40 years for me. I think it's incredible. I think these printouts, the colors are beautiful. The big screen is beautiful. So Rick says, see how low you can get your heart rate. Now he's playing classical music, which is so cool. You see my grandson laying there in the red. But this kid over here, he's listening. He's going to be counting. And it's really important to still have them counting, because the next day, this kid will be counting for this kid, but you're going to twice hear Rick talk about what the heart rate should be. Is everybody blue? And again, if some kid isn't blue, we're going to have a record of that. We'll be able to go into their records and see every single day they were ever in physical education. Right now, we can't even see one day, not one day. In the records of physical education is just the fitness tests. There's nothing else. Nothing else in there. Every other class has all kinds of data in there. We have nothing. So here's the kid laying down while classical music is going on. Then they jog back and forth. Rick goes with them just to make sure they don't go too fast. You just want to warm up with it forwards and backwards. So we got that documented, which is important because that's a part of every warm-up. Warm-ups are a part of everybody who's ever going to exercise. You don't just go out cold and start running or riding your bike. You should warm up. Now we have the big board up on the wall, which is phenomenal. We don't have their names up there. The names are on the we know who's number 10 on our iPad, but up in the wall, it's going to have no names. It's going to have their number. So these kids are looking up, and they're looking at just their number or their box. The teacher's looking to see how all the boxes are. Right now, if they're mostly blue, but there's some red, then you got a concern. If this was a regular class period, a lot of times you'll look up there and you'll see this kid different than the others, and you'll stop them and talk to them and take a look at their data right there. Now here you have it climbing. Beeping goes faster and faster and faster, and the kid has to go a little bit faster. Well, then their heart rate will respond. Or they have to stop because they hit the red zone, and you're going to see some indications of that. You'll see what average fourth graders did. This is an extraordinary kid here. He is an athlete, and to this day, he's a runner. Of course, I know that I'm from Grundy Center for 38 years. I know the kid. I know the family. I know the parents. This is doesn't surprise me, but boy, if you're a coach and you're a coach of distant runners, this is the kid you want. And here's the recovery heart rate. They're laying there. Our sensors are so lightweight, so simple. You put it on, the light shows. It's phenomenal. It's very simple. You can't break it. There are no buttons that can fall off. We have very few ever returned, and I've been with several heart rate monitor companies, and return breakage was the problem. I'm amazed. Then you have recovery. So how soon does he recover? Off of a submax test, comes back down very nicely, and we've got that recorded. Immediately, within 10 minutes, that data is sent to the parents without you doing anything. You set it up so that the emails will be automatic, which is phenomenal. I don't have to go through 550 kids and email them. It's already set up in our software. Examples of printouts, and these are the first time fourth graders have ever done a 20-meter submax test. And I want you to see what normal kids are like at this age, because you saw the kid that's in phenomenal shape. Well, what's the rest of them look like? So here's where you see a kid who was supposed to go until he can't go anymore. Well, he didn't hit 190. So this kid thought he was working his heart out and didn't get up to 190. So we still say, okay, for the sake of this first time, we're just going to see what the kids do. So this kid quit, and he was only in the yellow 2 minutes and 12 seconds. So that's not even a submax test. This kid here got up to the red, got up to the peak of 190. Not in very good shape, was only in the yellow for 3 minutes and 33 seconds. You're going to see that this is the indicator of where they're at cardiovascular-wise, which is kind of cool. This kid was in the yellow, 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Remember, the kid in great shape was in the yellow 7 minutes and I think 11 seconds. So this kid didn't quite get there, but close enough, 181. We'll see what he does in the spring. He'll get this printout. We'll talk to him and we'll educate them. This kid is in pretty good shape. Got it through the yellow for 5 minutes and 52 seconds. Dropped down pretty good. Not bad, you know. This kid's in better shape than the others that you saw. And here's a kid who's in real good shape, 7 minutes and 19 seconds. Kind of stayed in there, and you know, might have been having to pick it up just a little bit there, but that's not what we want. We want it to be a different look to that. Here's another kid, 2 minutes and 45 seconds, peaked at 202. Minimum was 59. Not in very good cardio shape. And fourth graders, unless you're doing, look at it, it's pretty consistent. Now remember, we have 140 of these from 5 different classes. So I picked average ones. So the excellent printout looks like this, 7 minutes and 41 seconds. The kid went, it took forever to get all the way up there. Don't you think that's amazing? That we can see this, that we're not guessing. I believe that everybody watching this today has never seen this. Who would have told you to do this? Me. Visual evidence. Well, if I was teaching now, I couldn't wait to show my parents this evidence. Would have gone home in the parent-teacher conferences. They would have come in. I would have showed it to them again on their kids' file that's in my computer. We would have looked at all the things that we did, the different curricula that we were using, and his responses. To prove it, it's up there on the big board. You're using real time, which eliminates guessing. Every child who's doing the test, or just every child in every class, everybody would be wired. They're wearing the armband throughout the test, so you have the pre-exercise heart rate, the heart rate during the test, and the recovery. So you're using the big board at all times. And then you're going to teach it. And I think that this is really cool. So the next day, those printouts were sent to these kids as emails. Now they're going to bring that in, and it's going to be in front of them in a classroom. And Rick is going to teach this to these kids as they have their data in front of them. You know, we're educators. We took exercise phys, Kinese 1, Kinese 2, exercise physiology. We took hard courses. We understand this data. We can do technology. And now it's so affordable. So basic questions. How do you evaluate effort? 50% of your grade is effort. It's impossible. Anybody questions you on the effort grade, you don't stand a chance of defending it. Not a chance. You got 50, 60, I had 65 kids every 48 minutes. Observation isn't going to cut it for 50% of the grade. So show me your data from the workouts, from the cardio tests. Where's your history of exercise in the academic records? Heart rate data is the only objective, essential, and visual evidence to individualize exercise prescriptions in a group setting. How active were you in physical education today? Nobody can tell you unless you had this technology. You were moderate to vigorous, 51% of the physical education class time, and that's what we're after. You know, once I had this, I changed my lesson design. I had a printout, but I didn't have all the rest of the stuff. And I wanted to have a different daily lesson plan. I wanted to show parents, well, what are we doing during this first part of class? This is a class. How long do I talk during the concept? Do we use the big board? Yeah. What are the people that visited our classes? Have parents come in? Have we invited them? What's our activity? How did the activity do? What about cool down? And then when we have closure, could I get the kid to recover while I was talking to them about the things that we accomplished today in our major lesson design ideas, like they did in the beginning. I'll have a record of this kid every day, and I'll be able to show parents, look what we do. We get wired, it's my granddaughter. We're doing gravionics. We're taking kids into and out of all 6 basic postures. A bar is one of them. I begin to think, what back trouble is your number one claim for workman's compensation? 80% of all of us will be out of work because at some point in our life because of back trouble. What exercises? So I wanted people to start really analyzing what they were doing and what's your aerobic choices. Running isn't the best way to get aerobically fit. It's the cheapest. We should have exercise bikes. So I won the Crystal McCullough Fellowship Award, the astronaut, that teacher in space who died. And I had applied for it. I was one of 2 physical education people in the country out of 11,000 that had applied for it. I never thought it would blow up, of course, but when it did, it was stunning. And another reason why I've never worried about failure. Somebody's looking out for you. There's a reason why you have failure. You'll have more success than failure, but accept failure, move on, learn from it. Well, then I found out that there was a Crystal McCullough Fellowship. $38,000 was going to go to one teacher in each state. So I applied and I won. So $38,000, I could buy whatever equipment I wanted for my school. Exercise bikes, rowing machines, weight machines that were designed for youth, inline skating, whatever I could think of, cross-country skis. So it changed what I could teach when I had money to buy this. So I think that a lesson design is important at the beginning of the school year. We also have the 5 national standards here. And I think that first day of conferences, I would have this up in the wall so that when parents came in, I'd be proud to show them, what does your lesson design look like? What does my athletic practice look like? I could have the same kind of thing, but you need to take pictures. You need to import them. You need to have all your activities, which one you're doing each day. This would be day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. I would have 180 of these in my electronic portfolio, and I would be able to pull them out for any parent that ever wanted to know. Today, my kids' printout look like this. We also said, well, what's the value? How can we make our school board give us more time? Why can't we have daily physical education? So we put the heart rate sensor on the day in the life of a whole bunch of kids, and while they were in school. And we wanted to show parents that math, of course, the heart rate are sitting down. Lunch, they get outside a little bit. Physical education is the only place that goes mind-body, and they're actually quite active. Then you have language arts, and then you have science. And if you take physical education out of their day, you have a sedentary day, except for a little bit at lunch, but a sedentary day. Is that what you want your kids doing every day? So without physical education, we can now show them visually. It's persuasive. People don't want their kids sitting still the whole day. We educated the daily life to outreach to parents. So we put a heart rate sensor on parents, 700, and they wore it for the day, and we had a printouts of the day in the life of careers. Once they got used to using these, they started to come in and exercise. So you'd have the football coach exercising right next in our fitness center with 82-year-old grandmother. We had night classes where we had just for adults. And so we had cross-country skiing. We had a room that was full of equipment because, we had gotten other grants as well. And reaching out to these parents also meant that they were more apt to have healthier foods at home. They would help us with getting kids fit. So we posted these up on the wall, and we did the day in the life of an elementary kid and a high school senior. And again, if you take physical education out of the day, you're going to have a sedentary factory worker. All of the people, 700 people, nobody heart rate was in their zone enough to do anything unless they worked out of school for a second, came to our program, to the fitness center. So out of the 700 different jobs and things that people did, even the housewife and stuff, no wonder we have an obese society. Everybody's sedentary. I did not expect to see that. So we believe that we want to live better together, that adults in our community would support this. We ended up having people like one day a farmer came in and he said, I like to ride that one exercise bike over there. And we said, well, if it's busy, you can't do it. He says, yeah, I know. But what I want to do is give you a check for $3,000. And so that when I come in, then I can use that bike, okay? And so we made the deal, yeah. At 6 o'clock, he gets his own bike because he bought it. So it was kind of interesting. People started to donate. And in fact, we had one lady who was in her 80s. She'd been working out for 15 years. And she died of cancer, never married. And she left the school $4 million. So when people say, well, where's this all going to come from? It's going to come from people who can see that you're working hard to live better, to make a difference, and to help one another, to encourage one another. Maybe this week I'm the motivator, but maybe next week I need you to motivate me. So teaching exercise science and applying exercise science, I think hanging on your bulletin board should be an enlarged picture of a heart rate printout, so that when anybody comes in for whatever activities we have in this gym, because it's a middle school gym, they're going to walk right by there and they're going to say, well, what is this? If they haven't already. Our town pretty much knows. And then when Rick teaches this, he's got a place here to teach it, but they're wearing these every day. They know what this means by now. Physical education and science. You're applying exercise science. So here's Rick Schubach and the Grundy Center fourth graders. There I was with my darling grandson, and the greatest teacher I've ever seen in my life. I watched him for 30 years. He's incredible. And the kids, they couldn't have been better. So this printout can be sent to every parent each day. And I wanted to show you me downloading here for a second and see what you think about this. This was in 1987. Once the program disk is in there, you're done with the program disk. You can take it out. As this is booting up, and when it's done booting up, and you've gotten the program disk in, now you've got to have a data disk that you've already formatted with slash, capital I, capital D, period. That's the only characters that it'll accept. And then you have to use a program disk to set it up to receive data. And that you get, and you'll follow the procedures that number 4 on here gives you. Once you've got a data disk set up, now I've set up each class on its own disk. So I have all the classes from 4th hour even on this disk, all the classes on 7th hour even on this disk. And so each hour, I'm just collecting for the entire year. I think I can get the whole year on one of these disks now, because it's 3.5 inches. So I'll put that in, and now I'm ready to download this. And to do that, to download Heartline, I would take this and set it on memory recall. Okay, I would hit 1, hit return, put my data disk in, hit return again, tell the program what type it is, which is always type 1 for me. Now I've got the heart monitor. Just set this in there. Hit the middle button, and you'll know if it's being downloaded if it goes really fast. You've got to hold it down on all 4 corners. Wait for it to signal you quit. On the screen, it'll tell you. Characters have transferred. Now, what do you want to do? Okay, I want to continue. So I'd press return. I would now type in the month, the date, and the year. I would type the hour, the date, didn't store it. And it asked me if I was using limits. I would hit limits. Yes, I am using limits. For a 15-year-old kid, for a middle school child, I'm using 180 for the upper limit of the aerobic zone, target zone, and 140 for the bottom part of it. Ask if I want to change or don't want to change. I do want to make notes. I would put the person's name, class, grade, activity, and I might add age. I might add climate, something like that. Down here, I would put the kid's number that's on the wall that I've assigned him, so that when I print all these out, I don't have to go through and figure out what his name is or what his number most likely will be significant in how I organize things. So I would put in his number down there so I would know that. And then I would just simply hit escape to get out of this. And I would store it, which is number 1. I don't want to add to the totals because I have all different kids on one disk. I don't have one kid that I'm recording on every single disk. And it would then store it. And then this will tell me I've got it stored on program 1. Example number 34 is that kid's number. And then also how many blocks I have free, and how many I've used. Start the same procedure over and over again in each class. Well, that's when I look at that, that was for 550 kids. Each one had to wear a heart monitor. It didn't store multiple files. And the brilliant heart zones, the kid comes in, every kid, 50 of them, they push the button on their heart sensor. You see it up on the big board, it lights up. It's recorded the whole time. At the end of class, that kid hits the button. Every kid hits the button. Again, their square goes dark. And that is downloading. That sends the printouts to every kid's parent and themselves and to the teacher. There is no downloading, like you just saw, one at a time, that I did for 15 years. Anyway, that's all I have. Are there any questions?
That was very impressive, Beth. And that's a lot of work back then. Thank you for showing us that. Does anyone have any questions for Beth? Nicole, thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead. I think you're on mute, Nicole. Let me see if I can unmute you.
Should I take this off the screen?
Yeah, Beth, you can come back to Google Meet if you want.
I don't know how to do that exactly.
I think Nicole is just on mute. Does anyone else have a question in the meantime?
Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
For middle school, since you've done this for so many years, what is your suggestion about max heart rate? That since I have the watches, are you suggesting we set them for, you were saying 190 for a fourth grader? Is it okay to set them a little bit higher for middle school as a max? Or
no, the older they get, the lower the heart rate is.
Okay.
220 my age, it's really hard I struggled with this at first, and I had Phil Lawler to talk to over at Naperville. He and I both taught junior high, middle school. And so we were trying to figure out what to do, there was no research. It doesn't matter, there was no research. Now there is. So I think that I would set them 130 to 165, 170. And if the kids, they can't go as hard as you think. We're so used to wanting a kid to go hard. And if your heart's in shape and it's getting bigger and bigger, then you can't go as high. a conditioned heart, like the people who ride on the bikers that go distance riders, their hearts are 135, 140, and they're going at max. So it's not what we think, it's the opposite of what we think. A large heart doesn't have to go as hard. Whenever I see kids throwing up at the end of a cross country meet, it just irritates me. It should never happen.
Thank you.
You bet.
Jay, Beto, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, Beth, I was curious. So would students purchase their own monitor, or were they were the schools and you would kind of redistribute them at the end of every semester?
Well, yeah, the ones that see the heart zones, you can use them hour after hour after hour after hour. You set it up in the software so that it knows 4th hour, Beth Kirkpatrick's number is 13, and I go get number 13. And it knows when you download too. It's just amazing. So you can use them hour after hour, and then take them to athletics if you want. And then everybody has a number in each class. So you're number 5 in first hour, and the gym is number 12 in third hour, and somebody else's numbers. But their files will stay in their files. It's brilliant, brilliant software. It just takes nothing to set it up. You should be able to be up and running in a couple hours if you have our people help you, and we have great trainers. And once you do this for 2 weeks, you'll know everything I know, which is.
I was to piggyback on that. I was just kind of curious because I think of some of the wearables out there right now where you actually measures your sleep and everything too. It's like, if we're distributing and collecting, was there any sort of issue with hygiene and cleaning them so that, kids aren't passing staph or whatever like that? Whereas if the kid owned the monitor, then it's just a matter of making sure that they're wearing it when they come to class and participate in athletics.
I've seen it both ways. I think that if you wipe them off with, there's different things you can get just to wipe them off before you put it on. It's just on the arm now. It's not like it's around your chest. It's on the arm. But I still think that, a person can wipe off.
I'll jump in here real quick too, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Joe Goodnow with all Heart Zones as well. The bands that we have are fairly inexpensive, and they're easy to change out. So you can actually give bands to each student throughout. They have their own bands basically. So they would come in, pick up their sensor. They'd already have their band, click the band on, and they're basically ready to go. And we tell teachers it only takes about 10 seconds out of your class time to really use the Heart Zone system. So.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about the bands. Yeah, the bands are inexpensive. You have to buy the whole heart sensors, buy the bands. Yeah.
Yeah. Nicole.
Great question. Nicole Smith, how's it working now?
There we go.
Okay.
There we are.
I had to sign out to sign back in and activate it. Sorry about that.
We've all been there.
Beth, it is
Yeah.
so wonderful to see you.
Yes, it's good to
This
see
is
you.
an amazing presentation, and you are always super inspiring. And just seeing the video of like the original, with the little disc and all of that, really illustrates your commitment to this and your resilience to stay with something that's definitely worth doing. One of the things I saw throughout your slide presentation were the amazing views that showed an optimal view of the big board projected onto the wall. And I want that in my gym. And so I want to hear more about exactly how that was set up in the gymnasium you showed.
Okay.
The tiles from the big board were clearly prominent, visible from all the way across the gym. That's what I want my gym to look like, and that's what I think everybody's gym should look like. Projection here.
I know it. It's so cool. What we did was you can paint wherever you want that projection thing to go. The visual image is paint that wall white. You can get some real good white paint there. And the principal is going to go along with it when you tell them why. And then we mounted a really good projection system in the ceiling. And then that's why it was the better your projection system, the more clear that is. I've seen people get them for couple $100, or a lot of schools have gone to those televisions in classes, we call them. And now that, so all those portable projectors are sitting in the library, and people
Yeah.
can go get those for nothing. So you can shine it in the corner of the just like 10 feet away in a corner. But the ideal thing, like we have in Grundy Center, because we really have some tremendous support and benefit. But you know, we've gotten, it's a community that was really wonderful. They bought into it. But of course, Rick and I both lived there for our whole lives almost. So, you know,
I wonder if it's possible we should check in afterwards, because I really want to know more about that. And as crazy as this sounds, you know, I'm working at a university, and the thought for my university people of trying to put is like they couldn't figure out how they were going to make that happen. How are we going to get a projector up there? And I've been trying to tell them that this is common in most of the schools, in public schools around us. We got to get there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, we have really good janitors. I mean, they're the ones that they got a cage. They bought it from somewhere. Maybe somebody might have built that cage. We got these welders in town. Anyway, it could have been that parents. You know, they know what we're doing. They know what everybody touches it. There's no favoritism. You know, everybody's got a sensor. We have enough for every kid, every class, and the idea that you can use them back to back classes. The batteries last, you know, it's just amazing. You know what Rick told me, Nicole, he said he came over, you know, when I went there, and then we did all this, and he was just blown away too by it. And he goes, which was really, it just made me cry. He goes, you live to see your dream.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's very cool. Yeah, you are the best. I have to jump off because I have students coming for virtual office hours, and but I enjoyed your presentation. I will look forward to watching it again on recording, and we should definitely catch up.
I'd love to see. I'll be in Seattle at National. Maybe we can catch
Well,
up.
then you just gave me a reason to go to Seattle. There you go.
You know what? I'll take you out for dinner.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole, for all what you're doing at the university level.
I did see one question pop up. Somebody asked if about the sensors that capture steps as well. So you have the same sensor captures heart rate and steps. There's not two different sensors as well. So
that is just amazing. It's to me, it's just, I never thought that would happen. You have distance and intensity in the same. Oh, it can tell you so much more about when you have a history of a kid, and you can look back at what they're doing, and maybe their performance isn't very good, or for some reason. I had a kid one year that he was completely different. And when I looked at the history of his heart rate over 2 years, something was up, and it was important. He was on the wrong asthma medication. It would have killed him.
Sandy Moore, do you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to share on there. I bought mine from Beth, I think 7 years ago, and they are still being used, and every one of them are still working. And my principal, I'm retired now and work with Heart Zones, but my assistant principal, I talk all the time, and they are down to 17 cents a kid that has actually worn the sensors since then, and they're all still working.
Wow.
So there's nothing that lasts that long in school that you can, get that big of a bang, for your buck out of. So it's fabulous when you figure out, price per student.
And we have tremendous trainers that will come in and train school districts. They're the best.
Thanks for sharing that, Sandy. Does anyone else have any more questions before we head out for the night? Well, thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time. Thank you, Beth. That was incredible, being able to talk that whole long all by yourself. Oh, Crystal, it looks like we have one more question. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello. I love everything about this. I'm a PE teacher in Oakland, California, and I actually work at a Title I school. Is there a way to go about getting these monitors kind of like at a discount, since I am at a Title I school? Because something like this is something I want to implement into my PE program.
That's fantastic. I wrote a grant proposal that's on our website for free. You can go in there, and I filled it all out for you. So you can take that grant and hand it in. It's filled out for you to different organizations. For us over here, like John Deere Corporation in Iowa, they give out grants. The Hospital Association gives out grants. Most of the time, they're $5,000, and that would outfit a whole class, which means the whole school, class after class after class, because you only need whatever the biggest class is, because you can use
Yeah, the most we have is like 30 kids in a class right now.
Yeah, I think I shouldn't quote out loud, but I think, Joe, you might want to hop in here. I don't.
Yeah, you're right. For that's pretty close for a set of 30. And Crystal is grants are the best way. Right now, with everything that's gone on with COVID, there's COVID funding that's out there. That's a lot of funding. It hasn't been spent. And it's called the CARES Act, or it has a different, 3 different names, but we refer to it as CARES Act funding. And it's set aside, and in the CARES Act, it actually says for the purchase of technology. So Title I schools received a lot of that funding. So if you can go to our website, and it just popped up at the bottom for our guide. And then also there's a page that kind of talks about the CARES Act funding that, it was basically, I think one point, it's $185 billion were set aside for COVID. And I think only about half that money's been spent. And Beth can kind of jump in here too. You got to be persistent. Your first time you're going to ask, they're going to say, no, that money's already been spent. But it hasn't been. Beth she's I always call her the queen of fundraising. I
always didn't worry about people saying no. I had no ulterior motive. I wanted my kids to have equipment. I didn't want anybody to be put through exercise abuse. My dad died of a heart attack, so did my grandmother. And I really believe that had I not been using heart rate monitors now my whole life since I was, 30 years old, I would have been dead. So I think it's important that people know their heart rate, know what heat does, humidity does to you, stress. If you're under a lot of stress, you need to just take it easy for a couple of days. But the grant that I put together is in a PowerPoint form. I would make copies of that. I go to one of those places that makes copies, maybe your school makes copies, and I get in front of the school board. I look around town, who's got hospitals and stuff, and I would go make the presentation myself. And I would say, I need this. I can't teach without this.
Okay,
Also
thank
go to
you.
your Crystal. Also go to your tech department, because they have technology funds, budgeted every year. That's where we got our first bunch when we got ours.
Yeah, that's really good, Sandy.
Okay, yeah. Good to know all this, because I'm only in my 2nd year, so
good.
I'm still new to it all.
Oh,
You'll get there.
I wish I could do it all over.
Nice. And I'm also limited with space too. Like, I don't have a gym. We have an auditorium, and when it rains, I get kicked out, and then I get moved to a classroom. Like, I have a lot of I don't know what to say, but
yeah, the heart rate sensors are cool because you can have kids do all kinds of things in the hallway. We had ended up getting some different pieces of equipment that were kids that get active. You can measure it. They'll be
okay.
active.
Because hearing you also talk about, the heat, like today it was so hot, but we're outside. That's where we are. That's where PE is.
Yeah, right. But you can't go as you want to, kids will be going by their heart rate. So just as long as they're where they're supposed to be, they're in that yellow zone, they can be yellow all day.
Yeah. See, okay, cool. Yeah, that's very helpful. All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for doing this.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Those were great questions. Good luck in your 2nd year here. Hopefully you'll have a video like Beth's one day, from old dated technology. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we're going to mail out this webinar recording and the slideshow presentation. If you have any more questions, please email any one of us. staff@heartsfunds.com is a very easy one to remember, and we'll get any more information you need. Thank you so much, and have a great night.